Hi there, yeah, just a quick question about smaller businesses and how they implement green change. A lot of the bigger organisations seem to have specific roles within their organisations to allow for their organisations to follow the green agenda. But for smaller businesses just launching, how do they sort of ensure that they take on board all the points about being green?
Who'd like to start? Amy? Okay, you've got the mic.
Well, I think that it's the same in any organisation, that one person can make that change happen. So although you might, and a lot of people can put themselves forward as a sort of environmental champion or a green champion, so and make it part of their job title. So I've spoken to quite a lot of people who their company didn't have, they didn't have the resources to have a CSR department or a team, but because they were interested and because they could see the benefits for the company and also for their career by making themselves more high profile and coming up with innovative ideas that would help save the company money, they became that person and took it on as an additional part of their job role. And while in the first instance sometimes that meant that they had more work to do because they didn't have, and they still had to do their day job, so to speak, what often happened is as the companies saw the benefits of somebody sitting there and looking at energy use, looking at resource use, looking at can we design our packages in a different way that we can get more items onto every pallet and therefore save on our logistical costs, whatever it was, they actually then said there's value in this profession, in this role, and that person often then had that become a defined element of their job role and therefore had more time to devote to it.
I'd say it's probably easier if you're a small business because you can make the decision and just action it immediately. For example, we just recently got our recycling bins finally, although we were talking about the financial benefits and stuff, that was a huge cost to the business to get recycling bins, even though we pay lots of rates, annoyingly. I'm not going to rant too much about that. But I decided one day, and then within a week we made the phone calls. The flip side of that, I guess, is that it's my job to be doing things that get the money in. So if I'm not invoicing a customer or making sure somebody's producing a piece of furniture, then we're not making the money. So again, I'm wasting 3 hours on the phone to a recycling contractor. So you can be more immediate and make those changes quicker, but also it's slightly costly to your time, so it's harder in other respects.
I suppose I was just going to say that there's two main aspects that you can focus on. One is that how do you run your business in a green way, but the other is just if you're at the startup stage, actually thinking about the product and service you're offering and whether you can build some form of competitive edge to being more environmentally friendly or greener in some way. There is more and more customer pressure to see the environmental aspects of the products that people buy. So lots of companies are being successful through being able to offer something. You see in particular sectors, if you see in the hospitality sector with green guest houses and stuff like that, actually make their business on the product they offer, and there's more and more examples of that.
I think while smaller companies can't afford CSR departments, the advantage they've got is they don't have to engage in, like say, over 170,000 employees, like the likes of Unilever, spread over 120 countries. So as Max was mentioning, it's in that sense easier to reach your customer, your employees. But I think also, of course, you've got some very important influencers in small organisations. So targeting what matters to them is, I think, really key. What I guess a bit of experience I've passed on is just trying to get some early priorities. Look at what are some of the key issues that are going to matter to your organisation. Usually energy is a good place to start, particularly if you're energy intensive. If you're using a lot of resources, maybe looking at your supply chain contracts, so there's some savings you can make there. Try to understand what are the key material issues, the key things that are going to impact your organisation, and try to focus on those. And I think trying to just take one step at a time, it's an organic process, I think, is what we find. Try to create some what we call pioneering practice. That in itself starts to build momentum, tell the story informally, build on that. If you can really share, if you can measure any of that, even better, tell that story. Because I think then it just starts to gradually build. Some people then start taking interest, that seems to be working over there, can we be doing it over here? So I think it is an organic process, but having some clear priorities, starting to really, aim, target those influencers. You know who they are in your organisations. Is I think where I'd suggest starting.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much, Ben. And I think it's important to say that once companies have, in fact, agreed on their priority areas, what is a practical step that they can take that leads to that direct action? Now, GreenOfficeWeek website has the Dummies Guide to Greening the Workplace, which has lots of useful tips and handy hints for anyone wanting to take that step around energy efficiency or reducing waste, for example. Are there any other advisory sources or tools that our speakers can suggest people go to?
Yes, there's lots of advice for small businesses on the Carbon Trust website. In particular, there's a first steps area which is aimed more at the smaller businesses, and it's trying to again get over this fact that there's so many different things you could do, and we've tried to pick out for different sectors 3 different things that you could do, and focus on how you actually really helping people with those, be it a letter you might send to your supplier to get them to come and look at your lighting. But the newest thing we've got, which I think is really about getting everyone involved in an organisation, is a new tool, online tool called Carbon Trust Empower. The name's all about empowering people within your organisation, and that's a really fun, practical tool that has a virtual tour, so you can walk through an office and you can see all the different things that you could undertake as an employee, and actually make pledges to save in different areas. And there's a quiz and there's a tutorial section, and that's free to use. So that's really, I'd sort of recommend that people have a look at that tool, along with all the other advice that's out there.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. Any other suggestions?
And often local councils actually have some really good advice, particularly on the transport side of things. So how you can sort of help it, make it easier for your employees to get to work, looking at managing sort of car schemes, that sort of thing. A lot of them have some really good advice.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to mention that Avery's Green Office Week runs from the 14th to the 18th of May. So if you decide as a business that you want to take first steps or next steps in terms of greening the workplace, then do go to the website, register your interest, and every day of that week, of the 14th of May, there will be some practical steps and advice for you on how to green the workplace. So please do check that out. Do we have any other questions before we have to wrap up? We've got something on the Twitter feed, so I'll just come over here.
This is actually from Facebook yesterday. There was loads of people talking about how green they can be at home, but they just find it so hard to get to the office. If you could give one piece of advice, something they could do, what would it be?
Thank you. Did you all hear that, speakers? So one piece of advice from each of the speakers, please, on what people can do in the workplace to become greener. We'd like to start. I think Max is going to kick off.
This is a bit of a silly one, which you won't be surprised to hear. I've decided that driving a Sinclair C5 to work is amazing. I don't know if everyone's familiar with those. Giggling over the corner, clearly you've seen me driving mine. But I think obviously cycling to work is a huge thing, because I used to drive a big empty van to and from work because it was comfy and warm, but now I keep my little white, have you seen it from the 80s? Yeah, I'll keep one of them in the back of my van so I can actually use that to scoot home. So obviously getting to work and getting home from work, and it amazes me, a guy that works for me actually, he used to drive to work in his horrible diesel van, drive home from work and then drive to the gym to get fit and then drive home from the gym again. And I just said to him that I'll buy you a bike, for goodness sake, cycle 5 miles to work, and it gives him an extra 2 hours with his wife, which that possibly isn't the benefit for him, but I shouldn't have said that, you might be listening. So cycling to work or buying Sinclair C5s is my top tip.
I think one thing that is quite a sort of quick win, I think, is talk to your guy who's, or lady who's looking after the sort of the building, because I think just putting your you're building onto a sort of slightly more variable temperature. So rather than being the same temperature right the way through the year, just allowing it to be a little bit cooler in the winter, a little bit warmer in the summer, and people maybe just don't wear a jumper, during the summer and things like that, can actually have a huge impact. It saves a shed load of money, and frankly, it's more comfortable as well. Rather than coming into a freezing cold office when it's really warm outside, it's more comfortable and it saves a load of money. So I think have a chat to your estate manager.
I think my top tip, I think every workplace is different and certain challenges have already been taken on, so I think I don't want to be too prescriptive, so instead I want to say my top tip is to believe in your own power, because you know what it is that you could easily change in your office, whether it's recycling or getting fair trade tea and coffee or changing your suppliers to make sure your products are made from recycled materials or recyclable materials or whatever it is, but you can make a difference. So my top tip is do it, try it, and you will succeed.
I think mine has been stolen. And I'll therefore say about travel, obviously there's bicycles, but also consider just not travelling. So there's an awful lot of people spend a lot of their time and a lot of money and a lot of carbon travelling to meetings, and there's a lot of technology there now that can avoid that. So just think, every time you're going to travel somewhere, do I need to do it?
Great, some really useful advice there. And I think, just to underline many of the points that we've raised today, try and make it fun, because if you make your actions fun in the workplace, then more people will become engaged and will want to take up the mantle. So come up with some ideas, maybe some inter-house competitions, some inter-department or team competitions, league tables, or even just prizes for the most innovative ideas from office workers, from employees. That really helps, just to raise the profile and just get more momentum around the issue. I need to round up this session now, but I'd like to thank you all for attending today. Many thanks for the Twitter feeds as well. It's great to have your support online, and do please check out Green Office Week at www.greenofficeweek.eu. Many thanks, and thanks to the speakers. Goodbye.
Are we able to get